I didn't think the first time a child ever called me mom would happen on a soccer field, while my own family sat smiling beside the person who once terrorized her. But that's exactly how it happened. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that smells like cut grass and cheap coffee, with parents clustered in folding chairs like a little town that only exists for 2 hours. Emily, small ponytail, oversized jersey, was about to play striker for the first time. She'd been practicing all week, proud in that quiet way kids are when they don't want to jinx something they love. I had invited my mom and my brother, thinking maybe they just needed to see her, see how hard she tried, see how her eyes searched the sidelines for safety. My boyfriend Noah squeezed my hand as the whistle blew. Noah is the kind of man who listens with his whole body, shoulders squared toward you, phone forgotten, attention steady. He's also a single dad, which I'd never planned for in my life, until I met him and realized plans don't mean much when your heart decides to be brave. Emily scored in the first half. I recorded it, laughing so hard my voice cracked. And then I saw her freeze. Her face went pale, like someone had turned the sun off. She stared past me, past Noah, past the field. I followed her gaze and felt my stomach drop so fast it was like my organs were trying to escape. There she was, Noah's ex. The biological mother who disappeared for months at a time, who had shown up high once demanding money, who had threatened to take Emily like she was property. The woman Noah had warned me about, because he had warned me, quietly, carefully, like you warn someone about a storm that doesn't look dangerous until it's on top of you. Before I could even move, I saw my mother and my brother walk over. Not to Noah, not to me, not to Emily, to her. They sat beside her like old friends. They laughed. They talked. And Emily, sweet, resilient Emily, looked at me with that scared, hopeful question in her eyes, as if asking whether the adults were about to ruin her life again. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about an ex coming back. This was about my own family choosing the wrong side and trying to drag a child into the middle of it. Before I met Noah, I used to think my boundaries were solid. I was 27, working as a pediatric nurse, long shifts, sore feet, hair constantly tied up, my life measured in medication times and tiny victories. I love my job because kids are honest in a way adults forget how to be. They don't hide pain behind polite smiles. They don't dress fear up as "I'm fine." When they trust you, it's like being handed something fragile and sacred. So when people asked why I'd stayed single for so long, I'd shrug and say, "Work's busy," which was true, but not the whole truth. The whole truth was, I'd watched too many women in my life choose men who made their lives harder, and I promised myself I wouldn't be one of them. Then, 6 months ago, I went to a birthday party I almost skipped. Noah was there because his friend Jake practically dragged him out, insisting he needed one night off from dad mode. Jake's wife, Amy, worked at the hospital with me, so she knew I was coming. And she did that thing friends do, where they set two people in the same orbit and pretend it's accidental. Noah didn't come over with big lines or flashy confidence. He was standing near the kitchen island, watching the room like he was making sure no one needed help. When I reached for a drink and the bottle slipped, he caught it one-handed without making me feel stupid. "Nice reflexes," I said. He smiled, small, warm, like he wasn't used to being noticed. "Occupational hazard. I catch flying sippy cups for a living." That made me laugh, and he laughed too. And suddenly we were talking like we'd known each other longer than 10 minutes. True crime documentaries, hiking trails, how adulthood feels like answering emails until you die. On our first date, he told me the part that matters. He had a daughter. "Emily," he said, like her name had weight. "She's everything." He didn't wait until I was attached. He didn't hide it. He didn't test me. And I respected that more than any romantic gesture. I told him the truth right back. Dating someone with a kid is new for me. He nodded, not defensive, not offended. If it's a deal breaker, I'll understand. It wasn't. Not because I was trying to be noble or prove something. It wasn't because I thought I could save anyone. It was because Noah didn't treat his daughter like baggage. He treated her like his heart walking around outside his body. Emily's biological mom, Becca, had been gone in and out since Emily was little. Noah explained it carefully, without turning it into a rant. She had issues, he said. Sometimes she'd disappear for weeks. Sometimes she'd show up with big promises. Emily learned the hard way not to believe them. There was one night Noah described with his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jump. "Emily was 2, he said quietly. Becca came by, not sober. She demanded money. When I said no, she got aggressive. I had to call the police to get her to leave. I didn't ask for graphic details. I didn't need them. The way his voice went flat told me enough. After that, Becca vanished for almost a year, and when she came back, it was always on special days, birthdays, holidays, like she wanted the photo opportunity of motherhood without the work of it. She barely paid child support, and when she did, it came late and messy, like an afterthought. Noah's family knew all of this, which is why, at first, I assumed they'd understand why he was cautious, why he didn't want Becca popping in and out of Emily's life like a door that never fully closes. But families don't always behave like you expect. Sometimes they behave like they're protecting their own comfort, not the child's safety. After 3 months of dating, Noah introduced me to Emily, casually, in a park, where she could run if she felt overwhelmed. I brought bubbles and dinosaur stickers because Noah told me she loved both. Emily studied me like a tiny judge. Then she asked, blunt as only children can be, "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I respect dinosaurs," I said, "especially the ones with good boundaries." She giggled, and just like that, something softened. It wasn't instant. It wasn't fairy tale. It was small moments. Emily letting me tie her shoelace. Emily handing me a drawing. Emily leaning against my side during a movie like it was normal. And somewhere in the middle of all those ordinary moments, I started to care in a way that scared me. Because caring about a child means you don't just lose a relationship if it ends. You lose a whole person. And Noah made me want to be brave anyway. That was before Becca reappeared. Before she started making threats. Before Noah's own mother looked at me like I was a mistake. And before I realized the real fight wasn't just with Becca. It was also with the people who were supposed to be on our side. The first sign that something was wrong didn't come from Becca. It came from Noah's mother. I noticed it in the way her smile tightened when Noah said Emily's name. The way she paused, just a fraction of a second too long, before responding when he talked about school projects or soccer practice. It wasn't open hostility, it was worse. It was judgment dressed as concern. "You're moving pretty fast," she said once, stirring her coffee like the cup had personally offended her. Emily's already been through so much. I agreed with her. I always did, because Emily had been through too much. But then came the follow-up comments. Children get confused when too many adults play parent. Blood matters, whether people like it or not. Her real mother will always be her real mother. Every sentence landed like a pebble in my shoe, small, ignorable at first, but impossible to forget once you started walking. Noah's sister, Rachel, was worse. She didn't pretend to be gentle. She sent articles, links, horror stories about custody battles that dragged on for years. She texted Noah late at night, asking if he was prepared to lose everything over a relationship that wasn't even his responsibility. And then Becca reappeared. Not dramatically, not with a lawsuit or a police escort. She showed up on a Sunday morning like she'd never left. Emily had been coloring at the kitchen table when the knock came. She looked up instinctively, hope flickering before Noah even reached the door. That hope shattered when Becca stepped inside. She smelled like cheap perfume and stale confidence. Her smile was too wide, her voice too loud, like she was performing motherhood instead of being one. "There's my baby," she said, reaching out. Emily froze. Not fear exactly, confusion. The kind that hurts worse because it doesn't know where to land. Becca stayed too long, talked too much. She laughed at things that weren't funny and commented on Noah's house like she was mentally redecorating a life she'd abandoned. When Becca found out Noah was dating me, her eyes sharpened. "Oh," she said lightly, "so you've replaced me." Noah corrected her immediately. Calm, firm. "No one replaced you. You left." That was the moment her mask slipped. After that day, the messages started. She texted Noah constantly, begging one minute, threatening the next. She showed up at Emily's school unannounced, forcing the staff to circulate her photo like a warning sign. Emily started asking if Mommy Becca was going to take her away. I held her while she cried, feeling her small body shake against mine, wondering how a woman could cause this much damage and still call it love. And still, Noah's family sided with Becca. They invited her to events without telling us. They said things like, "She deserves a chance," without ever asking whether Emily wanted to give one. I tried to stay quiet, respectful. I told myself it wasn't my place. But the tension kept building. Emily grew quieter. She stopped running onto the field during soccer warm-ups. She checked the sidelines before every game, scanning for danger like a child twice her age. Noah started sleeping badly. I could feel it in the way his body stayed tense even when we lay side by side, like he was bracing for impact. And me? I started realizing something terrifying. The biggest threat to Emily's peace wasn't just the mother who left. It was the adults who kept opening the door for her and calling it family values. I didn't know it yet, but the soccer game, the one where Emily would freeze in the middle of the field, was already set in motion. All the pieces were moving quietly into place. And when they collided, there would be no pretending this was just miscommunication anymore. The morning of the soccer game felt hopeful in a way that now makes my chest ache. Emily woke up early, already in her uniform, cleats lined up by the door like she'd practiced the night before. She ate half a banana and declared it was fuel, then asked Noah to braid her hair because he does it tighter. I watched them in the kitchen, the quiet rhythm of a father who never missed a detail, and a child who trusted him completely. That's why I invited my family. I told myself this would be different, that if they saw how Noah showed up, how Emily glowed when she spotted him in the crowd, they would finally understand that this wasn't a phase or a mistake or a charity project. It was a family. The field was already buzzing when we arrived. Folding chairs scraped against gravel. Parents shouted encouragements that blended into background noise. I set up my phone to record, like always, and Emily gave me a thumbs up before running to her team. She scored in the first half. I jumped so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Noah laughed and pulled me into a quick hug, pride radiating off him. Emily glanced over, saw us cheering, and grinned, wide and fearless. Then everything shifted. I felt it before I saw it. That instinctive tightening in the stomach, like your body senses danger a second before your brain catches up. Emily stopped running. She stood in the middle of the field, hands on her knees, staring past the goal. Her shoulders slumped, her face drained of color. I followed her gaze. Becca stood at the edge of the field. She wasn't cheering. She wasn't waving. She was just watching. Her eyes were fixed on Emily like she was reclaiming something she'd misplaced. She wore a smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind people wear when they think they're winning. Before I could say anything, before Noah even registered her presence, my mother and my brother stood up and walked straight toward her. I watched them greet Becca, warmly. My mother touched her arm. My brother laughed at something she said. They sat beside her like this was the most natural thing in the world. Like Noah and I didn't exist. Like Emily wasn't visibly unraveling in front of everyone. "Coach," I heard myself say, already standing. "She needs a break." The coach nodded immediately, concern etched on her face. Emily walked off the field slowly, eyes down, every step heavy. I crouched in front of her. "Hey," I said softly, "you okay?" She shook her head once, hard. "She's here," Emily whispered. "Why is she here?" I didn't have a good answer. Noah came over then, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on his family sitting beside Becca. I could see the realization hit him like a punch. "What the hell is she doing here?" he muttered. Emily started crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs. Quiet ones. The kind that feel like they're collapsing inward. I wrapped my arms around her without thinking, her small fingers clutching my jacket like she was afraid I'd disappear too. Noah knelt beside us, one hand steady on her back. "She can't take you," he said firmly. "You're safe." Emily nodded, but fear doesn't listen to logic. After the game, my mother insisted on lunch. Insisted. She framed it like kindness, like tradition, like refusing would be rude, especially with Emily right here. I should have said no. I didn't. We ended up at a family restaurant with laminated menus and forced cheer. The seating was wrong from the start. Becca slid in beside my mother like she belonged there. My brother sat across from Noah. I sat between Noah and Emily, feeling like a human shield. Becca talked nonstop. She spoke about future plans she had for Emily. 6 Flags, swimming lessons, Disneyland. She said them like promises, like she hadn't already broken 100 others. Emily pushed food around her plate. My mother smiled indulgently. "It's so nice seeing her father involved again," she said. Becca didn't correct her. Then she said it. "I'm filing for joint custody," Becca announced, lifting her glass like she was toasting. "I've cleaned up my life. It's time Emily had her real family back." My mother clapped. Actually clapped. I felt Noah go completely still beside me. I felt something in myself snap. Emily slid off her chair and whispered, "I need the bathroom." I stood so fast my chair screeched. "I'll take her," I said, already walking away. In the bathroom, Emily stared at herself in the mirror, eyes red, face small. "Am I going to have to go with her?" she asked quietly. "No," I said immediately. "No one can make you." But even as I said it, I knew this was no longer just about Becca. This was about lines that had been crossed. And once lines are crossed, there's no going back to pretending everything is fine. We left the restaurant before Emily came back from the bathroom. Not dramatically, not with shouting or overturned tables, just quietly. Noah paid the bill without looking at anyone. I gathered Emily's jacket and backpack, my hands shaking as I zipped the pockets like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Emily walked beside me, eyes fixed on the floor, small fingers brushing mine like she needed constant reassurance that I was still there. In the car, she didn't cry. That scared me more than tears would have. She buckled herself in, pulled the strap tight across her chest, and stared out the window. Noah drove with both hands locked on the wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched so hard I worried he'd crack a tooth. No one spoke for a full 5 minutes. Then Emily asked very softly, "Did I do something wrong?" The question landed in my chest like a dropped plate, sharp, shattering. I twisted around in my seat. "No," I said immediately. "You did nothing wrong. This is not because of you." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully believe me yet. Kids internalize chaos. They look for the flaw inside themselves because it feels safer than admitting adults can be reckless. When we got home, Emily went straight to her room. She closed the door without slamming it, another quiet thing that felt louder than shouting. Noah leaned against the counter and dragged a hand down his face. "I should never have invited them," he said. "I should have known." I stepped closer but didn't touch him yet. He needed space to breathe. "They didn't protect her," he continued, voice rough. "They didn't protect you, and they sure as hell didn't protect Emily." I nodded. What happened today wasn't an accident. That's when the self-doubt crept in. The part of me that wondered if I'd overstepped, if being there, if loving Emily had made things worse. If Becca saw me as competition instead of an adult helping stabilize her daughter's life. "I don't want to be the reason this explodes," I said quietly. "I don't want to make things harder for her." Noah turned to me then, eyes sharp with clarity. "You didn't cause this," he said. "Becca did. My family did. You're the only one who saw Emily falling apart and chose her." That night, Emily had a nightmare. I heard her before she reached the hallway, soft whimpers that turned into sobs when she saw the light from our bedroom. "She's going to take me," Emily cried, climbing into Noah's arms like instinct guided her. "She said she's my mom. What if she makes me go?" Noah held her tight, whispering reassurances I could tell he'd rehearsed in his head 1,000 times. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing slow circles on Emily's back until her breathing evened out. "Am I allowed to call you Mom?" she asked suddenly. The word hit me so hard I had to swallow before answering. I looked at Noah. He didn't nod or shake his head. He trusted me. "That's something you and your dad get to decide together," I said gently, "but you don't owe anyone a title to feel safe." Emily thought about that, then rested her head against my shoulder. The next morning, Noah's sister messaged him. Then his mother. Neither apologized. Instead, they doubled down. "She deserves a chance. You can't erase a biological parent. You're confusing Emily by letting another woman play mom." I watched Noah read the messages, watch something inside him close like a door locking from the inside. Later that afternoon, the real bomb dropped. Emily was napping when Noah came into the living room, his face pale, phone clenched in his hand. "My sister's been talking to Becca," he said. I sat up straighter. "Talking how?" "She's been sending her pictures," he said quietly. "Photos of Emily, recent ones, from the game, from my mom's house." The room felt suddenly too small. "And," he continued, voice breaking just a little, "she gave Becca my work schedule, and yours." I stood up so fast the coffee table rattled. That wasn't concern. That wasn't ignorance. That was betrayal. In that moment, something shifted inside me. This wasn't about navigating feelings delicately anymore. This wasn't about patience or benefit of the doubt. This was about protecting a child from adults who were willing to sacrifice her sense of safety to feel morally superior or emotionally validated. I walked to Emily's door and watched her sleep, curled around her stuffed dinosaur, face peaceful for the first time in hours. I made a promise to myself right there. I wouldn't be polite if politeness put her at risk. I wouldn't stay quiet if silence made things worse. And I wouldn't let anyone, blood or otherwise, use Emily as a pawn in their unresolved guilt. Whatever came next, I was done pretending this was just family drama. This was war over a child's peace, and I was finally ready to draw a line. Once the truth came out about Noah's sister helping Becca, everything accelerated, fast, messy, and cruel. There was no more pretending this was about what's best for Emily. Now it was about control. Becca stopped masking her intentions. The messages she sent Noah multiplied, paragraphs long, alternating between guilt and rage. "You're poisoning her against me. She wouldn't be scared if you hadn't replaced me. You can't erase blood." She emailed his workplace. She left voicemails late at night, voice slurred with emotion and self-pity. She began posting on social media, long emotional monologues about mothers robbed of their children, carefully edited to paint herself as a victim of circumstance instead of the architect of her own absence. Strangers commented with heart emojis and encouragement. None of them knew Emily. None of them had watched a 6-year-old flinch at a knock on the door. None of them had held a trembling child who whispered, "Please don't make me go." Then Becca crossed another line. Emily showed me her tablet one afternoon, her hands shaking. She messaged me, she said. Becca had found Emily on social media, through a fake account. Her messages were syrupy and manipulative. "I love you so much, I never stopped thinking about you. Daddy is lying to you. I'm your real mom." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. This wasn't desperation. This was psychological warfare on a child. Noah contacted his lawyer that same day. Screenshots, call logs, dates, times, everything documented. The word restraining order stopped feeling extreme and started feeling overdue. Meanwhile, Noah's family imploded. When he confronted his sister, she didn't apologize. She cried, but not for Emily. She cried for herself. "You don't understand," she said, arms crossed defensively. "He just needs support. Becca needs support. You're being dramatic." Noah asked her point blank if she understood that Becca had been high when she last threatened to take Emily. His sister shrugged. People change. That was the moment Noah went quiet. Not angry. Resolved. He told her to leave. Told his mother she was no longer welcome in our home until she could respect boundaries. His mother accused me of manipulating him, of playing house, of stealing someone else's child. I listened. Calm. Still. And then I spoke. "This child wakes up screaming because of the chaos you help create," I said evenly. "If that doesn't matter to you, then you don't belong anywhere near her." The silence that followed felt permanent. The escalation didn't stop there. Becca showed up at Emily's school. Not once. Twice. She waited near the playground fence, calling Emily's name until a teacher intervened. The school administration locked down immediately, filing incident reports and circulating Becca's photo to every staff member. Emily stopped sleeping through the night. She started asking if doors were locked, if windows were closed, if Becca knew where her grandparents lived. I sat with her on the floor one evening, while she built a puzzle she'd already finished 3 times. "Why won't she just leave me alone?" Emily asked. "Because some adults confuse wanting with deserving," I thought. But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, "Because she's focused on what she lost, not what you need." Noah barely slept. He checked cameras, changed routines, avoided predictable schedules. We became careful in ways families shouldn't have to be. Then came the soccer incident. Emily was practicing when a woman sat in a car across the field, engine off, windows cracked. Watching, Emily noticed. She came running to me, eyes wide. "That's her." By the time I turned, Becca was already driving away. That night, Emily asked if she could stop playing soccer. That broke me. No child should give up something they love to feel safe. That was the final straw. The restraining order hearing was scheduled within weeks. Becca didn't show up. The judge listened, read the evidence, watched Emily's therapist's statement, reviewed school reports. A temporary order was granted. 6 months. No contact, no proximity, no excuses. I thought it would end there. It didn't. Becca violated the order within days, approaching me at a grocery store while I was holding Emily's baby brother, asking if he was hers too, in a way. I reported it. The police documented everything. Emily overheard parts of adult conversations she shouldn't have to hear. Noah and I did our best to shield her, but fear has a way of seeping through walls. One night, Emily crawled into bed beside me while Noah was still awake, her small hand gripping my sleeve. "You won't leave, right?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, "I'm here." And I realized something important in that moment. Being careful wasn't enough anymore. Being reasonable wasn't enough. This situation was forcing a reckoning, not just legally, but emotionally. Becca wanted access. Noah's family wanted comfort, but Emily needed protection. And protection doesn't negotiate with people who refuse to take responsibility. The storm was peaking. We were all exhausted, but something was shifting. Not outwardly, inwardly, in me, in Noah, in the way Emily started standing closer to us instead of shrinking. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were preparing to end this. The lowest point didn't arrive with sirens or shouting. It arrived quietly on a Tuesday night when Emily stopped asking questions. That's how I knew we were in trouble. She used to ask everything, whether Becca could see our house on Google Maps, whether the restraining order meant Becca would disappear forever, whether it was okay to feel angry at someone who gave birth to you. Questions meant she was still processing, still trusting us to hold the answers. Then one evening, she came home from school, dropped her backpack by the door, and went straight to her room without a word. No tears, no meltdown. Just withdrawal. I found her sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. "Hey," I said softly, lowering myself to her level. "Rough day?" She shrugged. Not even a full movement. Just enough to say, "Don't ask." That night, she didn't want a story, didn't want a movie, didn't want me to stay until she fell asleep like she usually did. "I'm okay," she said too quickly. Kids who are okay don't say it like that. Later, Noah sat beside me on the couch, both of us exhausted in that bone-deep way that comes from weeks of constant vigilance. "I'm failing her," he said quietly. I turned toward him immediately. "No, you're not." "I brought this back into her life," he said. "I should have shut it down the second Becca reached out. I should have protected her better. I understood the guilt because I felt my own version of it. If I hadn't encouraged openness, if I hadn't believed people could change, if I hadn't tried to build bridges with his family. What if my presence made Becca spiral harder? What if loving Emily made her a target?" That's the kind of thinking trauma invites. Endless, poisonous what-ifs that circle until you can't see straight. That night, Emily had another nightmare. This one was worse. She screamed. Not a cry, a scream. The kind that snaps you awake instantly, heart racing before your mind catches up. I reached her room before Noah did. She was thrashing in bed, tears soaking her hair. "She was taking me," Emily sobbed. "She said you weren't my real mom and that you couldn't stop her." I held her as tight as I could without hurting her. "She can't take you," I said again and again. "She can't. You're safe." But safety felt fragile. The next morning, Emily refused to go to school. Her hands shook as she pulled on her hoodie. "What if she's there?" she asked. "What if she waits again?" Noah called the school. Extra security, staff escorts, reassurances. Emily still looked unconvinced. That's when I realized something devastating. Becca wasn't just stalking. She was winning, not legally, not practically, but emotionally. She had reinserted herself into Emily's nervous system, and Emily was paying the price. That afternoon, Noah got a call from his lawyer. Becca had been arrested, shoplifting. When they ran her name, they found the restraining order violation. 3 days in jail. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow, because even consequences didn't erase the damage she'd already done. The court date was scheduled, testimony prepared, evidence stacked neatly into folders. All the adult systems moved efficiently. But children don't move on a schedule. Emily started wetting the bed again. She stopped wanting to be alone in rooms. She flinched when her name was called unexpectedly. One evening, while I was brushing her hair, she asked a question so quietly I almost missed it. "Did she ever love me?" My throat closed. I could have lied, could have said yes, of course, absolutely. But Emily had lived the truth. "She loved you in the way she knew how," I said carefully. "But love is more than feelings. It's showing up. It's keeping you safe." Emily nodded slowly. Then she whispered, "You do that." That almost broke me. That was the moment I realized the dark truth of where we were. Emily had already made her choice. Not between adults. Between safety and fear. Between consistency and chaos. Between someone who appeared when it felt good and someone who stayed even when it was hard. But choosing safety doesn't mean fear disappears overnight. And the hardest part was still ahead. Because healing requires closure. And closure sometimes demands a final confrontation with reality. The turning point didn't come from something Becca said. It came from someone who finally stopped believing her. The court hearing was scheduled 6 weeks after Becca's arrest. By then, the restraining order had already done some practical good. No more surprise appearances, no more fake accounts reaching out to Emily. But the emotional aftermath still lingered like a bruise you keep pressing by accident. Emily started sleeping through the night again, slowly. She returned to soccer practice, though she scanned the parking lot every time we arrived. Healing, I learned, isn't linear. It's cautious. On the morning of the hearing, I wore a navy blouse I'd ironed twice because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Noah looked older than he had months ago, like carrying this alone had etched something permanent into his face. Becca arrived with a public defender. She looked smaller, no designer clothes, no influencer confidence. Just tired eyes and stiff movements, like someone bracing for impact. She tried to cry when she spoke. She said she'd been misunderstood. She said she'd been in a bad place. She said she was just trying to reconnect with her child. The judge listened patiently. Then he asked one question. "Why did you terminate your parental rights if you intended to remain involved?" Becca froze. The room went very still. She stumbled through an explanation. mental health crisis, bad advice, manipulation by others, but the judge didn't interrupt. When she finished, he turned to the evidence. School reports, therapist statements, screenshots of fake accounts, police reports, time-stamped violations of court orders. And then something unexpected happened. Noah's sister's name came up. The judge asked how Becca had gotten access to Emily's school schedule and photos. Becca hesitated, and then she told the truth, at least part of it. "She helped me," Becca said quietly. "She said Emily deserved her real mother." The judge's expression hardened. Noah's mother was in the gallery that day. I saw her face collapse when she realized the extent of what her daughter had done. For the first time, the story stopped being two sides. It became what it had always been. A pattern. A mother who abandoned responsibility, a family member who enabled harm, and a child caught in the middle. The judge ruled without drama. The restraining order was extended for a full year. Additional conditions were added. Distance restrictions, mandatory counseling, probation. Any further violation would mean jail time. Becca didn't look at us as the ruling was read. She looked at the floor. Afterward, her public defender approached Noah's lawyer. Becca wanted to write letters. Apologies, explanations, closure. Noah and I discussed it with Emily. Emily listened quietly. Then she shook her head. "I don't want letters," she said. "I don't want promises." That was it. No debate, just clarity. And in that clarity, something shifted for all of us. The truth was no longer disputed. No one was confused about roles or rights or boundaries. Becca had lost the narrative. More importantly, Emily had regained control. A month later, Becca's sister reached out to Noah. Not to argue, to apologize. She had believed Becca's version at first, had helped her move, had defended her online. But after the court ruling, she asked questions. The story fell apart. She admitted she left voluntarily, the sister said. She admitted the kids didn't want contact. She offered to testify if needed. She cut Becca off. That was the final fracture. Becca moved again, this time out of state. Oregon. A job at a call center. A studio apartment. No more posts about motherhood. No more photos of Emily. Just vague captions about fresh starts and letting go. Emily noticed the silence first. "She hasn't been around," she said one night, cautiously hopeful. "No," I said, "she hasn't." And for the first time in months, that silence felt like peace. The turning point wasn't Becca being punished. It was Becca being believed no longer. And in that absence of chaos, something beautiful began to take root. Emily started laughing again, really laughing. She stopped checking the windows. She asked if she could paint her room purple. And one night, while we were folding laundry together, she said casually, "Can I call you Mom now?" Not because she was afraid, not because she was confused, but because she wanted to. I looked at Noah. He smiled through tears. And in that moment, I understood something profound. Family isn't decided by biology or courtrooms. It's decided by who stays when staying is hard. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in ripples, quiet, irreversible ones that changed the shape of everyone's lives. For Becca, the consequences arrived without drama. No viral takedown, no public apology tour, just silence where attention used to be. Her social media shifted first. The long posts about motherhood disappeared. The old baby photos vanished. In their place were vague quotes about growth, distance, and starting over. People stopped commenting. Engagement dried up. The crowd that had cheered her on moved to the next story that made them feel righteous without requiring facts. Rachel, Noah's sister, took the hardest hit. Once the truth was out, there was no way to reframe it. Screenshots don't care about intent. Evidence doesn't soften for family. Their parents were devastated, not because they lost access to Emily, but because they realized how badly they had failed her. Rachel moved out of the city within weeks. No dramatic goodbye. Just a long email that read more like a confession than an apology. She admitted she'd been jealous, that she'd projected her own unresolved attachment onto a child, that helping Becca had felt like reclaiming control over something she'd lost. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because forgiveness doesn't require access. Noah's mother tried hardest to make amends. She cried when she came over the first time after months of silence. She apologized to Emily directly, without excuses, without conditions. "I didn't protect you," she said, voice breaking, "and I should have." Emily listened. She didn't hug her. She didn't forgive her. She just nodded. That was enough. Rebuilding trust, I learned, isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency. Meanwhile, something else unfolded quietly, something no one could argue with. Emily flourished. She stopped asking if Becca would come back. She started talking about the future instead. Tryouts, science projects, sleepovers. She invited friends over without asking if it was safe. She asked Noah to teach her how to ride a bike without training wheels. She let me braid her hair before school without flinching. And slowly, the fear that had lived in her body loosened its grip. Noah changed too. The constant tension drained from his shoulders. He laughed more easily. He stopped checking the driveway before opening the door. One night, as we sat on the porch watching Emily chase fireflies, he said quietly, "I don't feel like I'm bracing anymore." That mattered. For me, the fallout was internal. I had crossed a threshold I didn't know existed. I wasn't helping out. I wasn't dating a man with a child. I was a mother, not by replacement, by presence, by showing up when it was inconvenient, by choosing firmness when politeness would have been easier, by staying when leaving would have protected only myself. The court confirmed Becca's relocation months later, updated address, updated employer. Oregon, a call center, no contact allowed. The distance wasn't just geographic, it was emotional. Emily stopped asking questions about her. When kids stop asking, it usually means they've found their answer. Life settled into something ordinary and extraordinary because of it. Homework battles, packed lunches, missed socks. Emily introduced me at school events as my mom without hesitation. No one corrected her. No one needed to. Becca didn't resurface. Not legally, not emotionally, not digitally. I don't know if she accepted the truth or simply ran from it again. But the difference this time was clear. She no longer had an audience. And more importantly, she no longer had access. The fallout had landed where it belonged. Not with revenge, not with spectacle, but with reality. And reality favored the people who stayed. Life didn't return to what it was before. It became something better, because it was built honestly. We moved in together last spring, into a house with a backyard big enough for soccer drills and muddy shoes by the door. Emily painted her room purple like she'd always wanted, splattering paint on my jeans and laughing when I pretended to be mad. Ordinary moments became sacred, not because they were dramatic, but because they were safe. One evening, after a school play, Emily had been a tree in a forest production. Arms stiff, leaves taped crookedly to her costume, she ran straight toward us in the crowd. "This is my mom," she said to her friends, pointing to me, and my dad. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't discussed. It was simply true. Noah squeezed my hand so tightly I thought he might break it. I felt tears gather, not because of the word itself, but because of everything it represented. Consistency, choice, protection. We're getting married next spring. Nothing extravagant. Just family, friends, and a backyard that already holds our memories. Emily will be the flower girl. She's practicing tossing petals like it's a serious responsibility, which, to her, it is. After the wedding, Noah and I will start the adoption process. With Becca having signed away her rights long ago, it's mostly paperwork. But emotionally, it feels like closing a chapter that never should have been reopened. Becca hasn't reached out. Maybe she's learned. Maybe she hasn't. What matters is that Emily no longer waits for her. Here's the lesson I wish more people understood. Biology doesn't raise a child. Presence does. Love isn't the person who appears when it feels good. It's the one who stays when it's hard, uncomfortable, thankless, and terrifying. Protecting a child doesn't make you cruel. Setting boundaries doesn't make you heartless. And choosing peace over guilt doesn't make you the villain. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for a child and for yourself, is to close a door that should never have been reopened. Emily knows who her parents are, not because we told her, but because we showed her every single day. And that, more than anything, is how families are truly made.